Como vai?
Tudo ótimo. E você?
Igualmente, ótimo.
I like the sunshine behind you.
Yeah, it's a little cold here at the beach today, but still nice and sunny.
I hope you have a jacket then.
Yeah. So hey, Steve, muito obrigado. Thanks so much for joining me. This is the first initial uh, podcast interview for the new Latin Hour podcast. So I greatly appreciate you making the time. And you've got one of the most diverse international backgrounds I know of, and just all over Latin America, um, the U.S., etc., which we'll go into. We're going to definitely run out of time, so we'll probably this can be a short intro. And we'll have to do a second part because just looking at everything you've done on your LinkedIn page, thinking of prior conversations, it's impressive. Um, so again, thank you for making the time. I'm delighted to have you here for the first episode of the Latin Hour. To the listeners and viewers, the focus of this podcast will really be primarily business, economic, financial, but of course also culturally and otherwise as it relates to Latin America. So with that being said, Steve, tell us a little bit about your story. I mean, you speak multiple languages. Could you tell us a little bit about that? I'm Portuguese, Spanish, English, and some others. And if you could also weave into that part of your background, you studied the MBA at the INSEAD, was it?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about all that, and then you can lead that into what brought you here to Dallas, and then that's what brought us here tonight.
Okay, I'll try to give you the short version.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, great to be with you guys. Honored to be the first guest here.
Thank you.
And a little bit about my background. My dad was Hungarian. My mom was German. And they both left Europe after the war. They met in Argentina. Got married, and then my sister was born in Argentina. And then my dad landed a job in Peru, in Lima.
Wow.
So I was born in Lima, and I lived there for about 10 years. Then he got transferred to Brazil. And when he got transferred there, the idea was, okay, how long are you going to stay there? Probably not too many years because, you're in the corporate world and what have you. And I mean, he ended up tiring and passed away in Brazil.
Wow. Is that Sao Paulo?
No, Rio.
Oh, pardon me, Rio. Wow.
Okay. And the reason I mentioned that is that because of that, we both went, when I say both, it's my sister and myself, we both went to an American school in Rio. And that kind
American school or an American school? I'm just curious.
Sorry?
Was it called the American school, or was it?
Yeah, actually it was called Escola Americana do Rio de Janeiro. So yes, EARJ.
Okay.
And they have like several, probably a lot of the big cities have like an American school. So I went there. That kind of prepared me to go to college. That was first funny story because I was meant to study architecture. My mom was an artist. She was a sculptor. Wow. My dad was in the business world, and I wanted to study architecture. I guess luckily I don't bad college advisor, and he never told me that I needed a portfolio to get into School of Architecture. So I applied to about 5 or 6 schools. My grades were good. My SAT scores were fine. But then I started getting letters, thank you for your application, but we haven't received your portfolio. And I'm going, shit, excuse the language. But
no, the language is fine as an adult show. But
I'm sorry, but, portfolio, why do you need a portfolio? And they said, well, we need one. I said, well, I don't have one. And it ended up that Syracuse, which was one of the schools that I applied to, they had a 5-year program, which was management and architecture. So they wrote me
I
back.
saw Syracuse on your profile, and I have a lot of questions, but I was like, how did Syracuse fit into all this? Now we know.
Yeah, they have, I mean, yeah, they have like, I applied to a lot of, I mean, there are not that many architectural schools. I mean, there are a lot more business schools and schools of architecture, and they have a good program. And I wanted to stay in the East Coast because travel is easier and what have you. So anyway, they had a 5-year program, and they said, well, come to the School of Management, take some art courses, build a portfolio, and then transfer. And well, that was option A, B, and C. I mean, I didn't have any other option. So I went to Syracuse, and then I took a marketing course, and I totally fell in love. And I said, man, forget architecture. I don't like this stuff. I'm glad I did this. So that got me into, marketing and business school and what have you. So anyway, so I forgot about architecture. I graduated with marketing management. And then I started working in, most of my corporate career was like in fast moving consumer goods company.
So tell us, so college, university definitely worked out for you. But so you graduated and did you stay up there, or did you relocate?
No, then I went back to Brazil. Yeah, no, I graduated, I went back to Brazil, and, my first job was at American Cyanamid. They used to own the Pine Sol brand. So, I started working as an assistant product manager or something. And then I went to Johnson Wax, and that was like my great school. And I worked there for about 3 or 4 years. Then I went to France to get my MBA.
Tell us a little bit about that. So what, you're already in the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 world, doing well. What led you say, hey, I want an MBA, or did you need an MBA? Perhaps, I don't know. And why go? A third of the way around the world to France. I mean, tell us a little bit about that, because, again,
Sure.
a lot of our listeners and viewers, they're familiar with the big U.S. schools, the big Texas schools, perhaps the biggest schools in Latin America, but not so much with what Europe offers.
Yeah, sure. What drove me there is a couple of reasons. One, yes, I always wanted an MBA, and I was thinking of going to the U.S. Okay, but then I had like a colleague at work, and she went to INSEAD like a year before I did, and I have to confess I didn't know much about INSEAD at the time, and then I started researching it, and it's actually, I mean, it's been a top 10 business schools in the world for the past 30 years.
Yeah, for a long.
And so there were some advantages there. Both personal, and one is it's a 1-year program. Okay. So
it's way back when everyone else was still doing 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was a 1-year program. The second thing that really attracted me there, it's truly international, because if you get like a Harvard or one of the top business schools in the U.S., they do have a lot of international students. But when you look at the student body, it's like 90% Americans and then 10% global.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, when I was in INSEAD, like the top nationality, the top 2 nationalities when I went there were French and British. And it was probably 10 or 12% for each country.
Yeah. Tell us a little more about this. Some of the, younger professionals, younger entrepreneurs that may end up listening to this. But also for my own curiosity. One looks at the cost, because an MBA is never been an inexpensive investment, and it more seems like education keeps going up, and MBA is no exception. So, leaving aside the fact that it was only 1 year, right? So you have 1 year less of living expenses than if you did it full time in the U.S. typically back then. Was the tuition itself comparable to a good U.S. school? Was it more? Was it less? Were there scholarships?
It was expensive. I have to, luckily, my dad pitched into most of the studies, so
Okay.
would say I was lucky in that respect. And yeah, so in hindsight, do they have great teachers? Do you learn a lot? No doubt about it. The greatest learning, though, was from other students, because we had a lot of group work. And so let's say Brazil, and there were two guys from France, there was one guy from England, there was one guy from Germany, there was another guy from Iran. And let's say you start discussing a marketing case. Okay, and they say, "Oh man, marketing, that's me. I got it. These guys are on engineer, that, the other." And you start discussing it, and I mean, all the cultural biases come in, and you're like, "Wow, I never saw that coming."
Yeah,
So
the cross training is
much
fantastic.
about different cultures and points of view and what have you, and that was really one of my big learnings there. And till today, the networking I had, I'm not going to tell you how many years, because that's embarrassing.
That's fine. That's fine.
But we had a Zoom meeting actually a week ago, and we had 90 members of the class participate in the Zoom meeting, which is really cool.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, you're hitting on a key point. My point of view on MBA programs anywhere is that I can see the drive to reduce them from 2 years to 1.5, and then 1 or whatever combination. I'm not talking executive MBAs. We're talking about complete MBA. Nothing against executive MBAs, but they really are different than a complete MBA. But it's that the requirement to not let you study the MBA until you've actually had a good couple of years of real world experience under your belt, whether that's as an entrepreneur and or on the corporate side, because that's why you get those valuable, that valuable cross-pollination. Not only is this person an engineer, and not only is this other person even perhaps studied medicine, and so you get the different life experiences, the different cultures, and then also, and additionally, the different professional experience. And I think one thing that's weakened a lot of MBA programs is, in this rush here in the United States anyway, for people to get more letters after their name. It's like they just finished undergrad, they want to jump into an MBA program. Well, no, because what are you offering? You're just at undergrad.
Yeah, and let's say in
INSEAD,
the average age, if I'm not mistaken, was and probably still is around 28 years old. So you had about 5-6 years experience behind you before you went there.
Yeah. So now, where were you actually living in France? Where was the campus?
It's in the school's in Fontainebleau, which is about 100 kilometers south of Paris. So there's a beautiful castle there, and it was great. It was like play hard, work hard. It was fun. It was 9 months, because it really starts in August, September. It goes through May, but really intensive. But it was great. It was absolutely great.
So that's another option for people, particularly listeners of a podcast like this that have international experience and perhaps international aspirations. And then again, it's been one of the leading MBA programs forever and still is. So then you finish that and you go back to Brazil?
I went back to Brazil. So I went back to Brazil, and
now it's still Rio, or was
part of the reason is I went back to Brazil. I mean, and I kept on working. I worked another 3 years for Johnson Wax at the time, and I got married shortly after, because I was dating before that, and then that's one of the reasons that got me back. And so I went back. We got married, and then kept on my career. Then I worked. I'm not going to bore you with everything I did.
No, there's not enough time. This is interesting. I mean, it's great that you're sharing a bit of your personal life as well.
Yeah. So we got married. Then I started working for Nabisco. And
so this is all in Rio, right?
This was all in Rio. Yeah.
So how did getting married and all of this lead you to working with Nike in Sao Paulo?
Well, when I left Nabisco, in one of those, changes of leadership that everything changes. And it was
Corporate life every
also,
couple of
it
years.
was, I didn't know that at the time, but it was like I left maybe when they were when the business got sold to Kraft. So it was like
I remember that.
they
Yeah.
were kind of, I guess, streamlining it and what have you and then they got sold off to Kraft. And, when I left, I was saying, okay, what am I going to do now? And, in my mind, I'm looking at other CPG companies, Procter, Colgate, Unilever, what have you, because that was my world. And then one day, I get a call from a headhunter, and he says, uh, you know, Nike's getting established here in Brazil. Would you like to work for them as
Oh man,
marketing guys?
that's
So
awesome.
marketing for Brazil. And I said, Nike? I never thought of Nike. It never crossed my mind.
Well, it's
And
not
then I said,
CPG, right?
no, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I said, wow, this sounds like fun and interesting. And, so I went for the interviews and stuff like that. And that was another funny episode because, part of the interview was in Sao Paulo where the company is. And then I had to go to Portland to where they have
Yeah,
their
the global
headquarters.
headquarters, right, right.
And it's like, it's a between the layovers and the time you leave the home and what have you. And so I get there and, put on my suit and what have you, it's interview time and what have you. And I go to the interview and I'm looking around and like, I'm the only one with a suit on. People are in shorts, people are in, very, very casual. And then, one of the persons that was interviewing me says, yeah, when we when we see somebody with a suit and a tie, it's either a lawyer or it's a candidate that doesn't know much about our culture. And I said, oops. And there was no internet at the time, so
Yeah.
it was a little
Wow,
bit better.
that's fabulous. So you obviously aced the interview.
Yeah, so then so I worked for them for, I don't know, maybe 3 years. And then the thing is, I moved to Sao Paulo, so my family stayed in Rio. And
Okay.
it was like Monday through Friday and then fly back to Rio.
So yeah, so for the listeners and viewers, how long a flight is that? Is that like Houston, Dallas, or is that something?
Yeah, it's a 45-minute shuttle flight. But then
Okay.
let's say the thing is, Nike was not quite in the city of Sao Paulo. It was like an hour drive. So I have to fly there and either take a taxi or drive, and then I would stay like in a flat for
Right.
during the week.
A corporate suite or
It,
something.
it took it ended up taking a toll with the family.
Yeah.
So,
Consulting or corporate, corporate executive travel schedule is just brutal. It's unforgiving.
yeah, and I was missing out with my daughters growing up, and then I decided, no, I'm gonna go back to Rio. So then I left Nike and started working for Novartis. They used to own the Gerber baby products.
Yeah, so you were working in the CPG side of Novartis, or
Yes, yes, yes. So they owned the Gerber baby products, which was baby food, the plastics and all that. They ended up selling it to Nestle afterwards, and I joined them. As first I had sales and marketing, and then I became like the general manager for the operation. So the
phenomenal.
business
I'm
unit
going
director.
to interrupt you again because there's just so much to cover, and yes, there's so much flavor in your experiences. So now, and take us from that to you worked with the Brazilian Olympic Committee. Is that right?
Yeah. Afterwards, I Brazil was preparing not for the Olympics that they got. The Olympics, let's say the Olympics were the last ones were 2016. This was a bid for Okay, so I knew the person that was running like with marketing,
And
and
you knew them from your work at Nike, you knew them because you play soccer or football.
I knew them from different sources. I mean, Brazil is small, you know. After
Not on the
you end
map.
up, you're like 3 or 4 people away from just about anybody, so you end up meeting a lot of people.
Yeah, Mexico's.
And yeah, so obviously, the fact that I worked for Nike, that counted, and so they were setting up a team to make the bid for the 2012 Olympics. And I worked there. It wasn't too long. It was like maybe 6 or 8 months, but it was great experience
In
because they
today's
they
world,
had
six
got like
months is a long time.
Australia. They got the consultants that had helped Sydney win the Olympic Games there. So I learned so much about what it takes and how you have to put things together and ticketing and this and all that. And it was a lot of fun and great experience.
Well, on that note, and I had never, we had never, you've done, I've known you for a couple of years now, but we never had talked about this. What are your thoughts on Texas getting, the World Cup? Not the Olympics,
Texas or the U.S.?
huh? No,
Texas or the U.S.?
Texas.
Well, the World Cup is not in a city; it's in a country.
Okay, touche. What
The Olympics is in a city.
Pardon me. You're right. You're right. You're right. My clarity, Steve. My clarity. What I'm
And I think it's going to be mixed. It's going to be the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, right? It's the three countries.
I didn't. This is the first I'm hearing about Mexico being included, and
Or
my
it could be Canada. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on
the
that.
reason I emphasized Texas was I hadn't heard about Mexico being included. Of course, more the merrier, sort of, from my point of view. Though they do not have the infrastructure nor the funds for the infrastructure right now. Canada, I can't speak to, though. Again, more the merrier. Though I had heard it being the U.S. and when the list of proposed U.S. cities, most of them were in Texas. So some of the conversations here in Texas a year or so ago, pre-COVID, were bring the World Cup to Texas. That's why I phrase it that way. But correct.
Yeah,
Could be
and it's I think to organize a World Cup, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a lot easier than Olympics because what you really need is stadiums, which you already have usually, unless you want to build new ones, and infrastructure, so hotel rooms and you have that. Okay, when you want to do a week period where you're doing multiple sports at the same time in multiple venues,
The
it's a lot
Olympics
more.
is.
It's a lot
Yeah.
more complex.
So with all of that being said, I mean, the World Cup, the Olympics are both, right, by definition, almost they're both global, international. If you think of specifically the World Cup, soccer, or whatever everyone else calls it, football, um, with the international soccer community be excited to come to Texas, or do you think that actually might be a negative from their point of view? That Texas is more than willing and welcome to have everyone. That's pretty clear. But
If you like soccer and soccer fans, they'll go wherever it is and they'll have fun. So
yeah, they're definitely.
wherever it is, they'll just enjoy it. I remember actually when they had the World Cup here in '94, the media was headquartered in Dallas,
Okay.
and my brother-in-law at the time he had just opened a Brazilian restaurant here downtown in downtown Dallas, and I was helping him out, so I took 3 weeks off from my work, and I was like I was waiting, I was in the bar, I was parking
Wow.
cars.
Awesome.
It was so much fun, and all the Brazilians used to go there. So the media would go there every day, and then, like I think it was the quarterfinal game or something, where Brazil beat Holland, which was a big game. And then at the
Yeah.
time, two of the players of that team, Dunga, Romario were in that team. They all went to the restaurant, and it was a lot of fun.
So, where was the restaurant?
It was in McKinney, downtown
Is it
Dallas.
still there, or he sold it?
No, no, he closed it. It lasted maybe 2 years,
Yeah,
and
it's a tough business, restaurants.
tough business. It was meant to be a Brazilian barbecue place, the first one, because they didn't have the ones with the skewers and all that.
Wow.
And the place was not adequate for that. And it became a Brazilian restaurant. And so you had like same people kind of going over, and I mean, unfortunately didn't make it.
Yeah, I mean, restaurants are very tough business.
It's called
Should
Rodizio's.
be a churrascaria.
Yes.
Okay. It's great, right? It's amazing because now they're a big business and there's several well-known chains that came from, I think one or two of them actually came from here, though the chefs may be Brazilian.
Yeah. Actually, there was one place that we used to go to Rio all the time, and there were a couple waiters there.
Uh-huh.
They were the founders of Fogo de Chão.
Wow.
So we knew them from Brazil, and then they opened first restaurant they opened in Porto Alegre, and then they went to São Paulo. And the first restaurant they had in the U.S. was on Beltline here in Dallas.
Yeah, see, we ate at Fogo de Chão before we ever moved to Dallas. I was shocked to hear it was a Dallas company. I'm like, what? Because it's really good. I mean, in my opinion, and I'll defer to you, of course, but it's really good food, and it's authentic enough.
Yeah.
I was just shocked. Like, wait a minute, it's not from a Brazilian company that came to the U.S.
Well, they were from Brazil.
Right, but the corporate entity
was Brazilian. Yeah, it was sold off maybe 4 years ago. So until 4 years ago, it was Brazilian owned, and then they sold it to investment group that
some
resold
private equity
it.
fund. I forget which one. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, fascinating. So I sort of took us off course a little bit there, but I did want to get your view on that. So after working with the Olympic Committee, so you worked at Dentsply.
Yep, that was my last corporate gig.
Okay, great. That's what I was wondering. When did you make the jump to pure, pure consulting, a non-corporate?
Well, I left. Let's say, at the end there, I had like a toxic environment. It wasn't good. It wasn't, good for me. And so I left, and I left like a month before the big crash of 2008.
Wow.
So getting a job became a little bit more difficult. And I already, I was kind of getting a little sick of the corporate world. And then there was this person that I really respected he owned a design agency. And, he was thinking of stop doing the traditional design of logos, this, that, and the other, and go more into strategic design and what you call shopper marketing. And so we joined forces, and there were a couple other partners, and started working in that. And that was great fun. We had some big clients like Nestle's and Johnson & Johnson and things like that. Worked there for a while. It was great fun, but like we say in Brazil, we were too many chiefs and not that many Indians. So at the end, I had a daughter starting to go to college. Financially it wasn't that great at the time.
So but you're still so you're in Rio at this point, right? You're in Rio or something?
Yeah, I was back in Rio. Yeah, I was back in Rio. And then I started getting, some people wanted some consulting more on strategy, which was one of the things that I always liked. So I started consulting in strategy and getting clients there. And then I got a US company that it's called Dr. Miracles, and they have ethnic hair products.
Okay.
and they wanted to open a subsidiary in Brazil. And so
makes sense.
So first it started with a, consulting job and doing a little research. And then I ended up, being like, I opened the firm, the subsidiary, let's call it, in Brazil. So
Nice.
that was I never learned so much in my life because,
Wow.
in the corporate world, you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, purchasing, I need this," or manufacturing, you need that. And here it's like I had to go to the bank, I had to hire people, I had to do everything.
You had to make the
I was
coffee.
I was a salesman, I was a designer, I was a marketing person, and I learned a lot. It was
Yeah,
also a lot.
experience like that is just phenomenal. Especially if you're gonna, if you're serving in the future, you're gonna serve small business or middle market clients, because you get to wear that entrepreneurial hat to a large degree because, as you said, you're doing everything.
Yeah. And I was doing that. Part of my time was working for this company, but I still had, a little time where I was still consulting, and most of my clients were middle market, and a lot of
Yeah.
company owners and things like that. And that's when I realized that many times they knew what they had to do, they knew what was important, and for whatever reason, they wouldn't do it. And that frustrated the hell out of me. And
That was not what I expected you to conclude with. I love your honesty. I love your openness.
And so I had lunch with this person I knew, and he worked with outplacement and coaching and what have you. And he said, these people need coaching. And I said, coaching? I have to confess, when I was in the corporate world, I was a skeptic of coaching. It was like, I'm going to get somebody to tell me what to do. I guess a little arrogant too. And the truth is, I didn't understand anything about what coaching was.
Well, coaching gets a bad rep. We all know there's a lot of coaches that aren't quite what they claim to be. Obviously,
Yeah, but besides that, I think part of the problem to understand what it is. People think it's mentoring, it's somebody to tell you what to do, and that's really not coaching. So
yeah, they're both valuable, but yeah, they're clearly distinct. They should be distinct.
So anyway, I learned about coaching, and I started really liking it, and so I started coaching people, and that's what got me where I am now. Then I just, I realized that I had to get ICF certified and all that.
Well,
So
let's spend a little time on this, and before we run out of time for this episode, and then we'll definitely have to come back and have another chat, because there's still a lot of interesting, valuable things I want to talk to you about and share with people. And again, I'm learning a lot of this for the first time. So tell us, how are you helping companies, people now with Step Forward, and give us some flavor on how you're doing that, who you help and how you help them.
I think there are two types of clients that I usually work with, and that's why I called executive coaching and business coaching. What's the difference? And let's say, first of all, let's backtrack a little bit to coaching. Okay, so coaching is really not mentoring. It's really, let's say if I were to be your coach, I would try to understand what challenges you have, what is holding you back, and then we will kind of partner together to understand what's holding you back. And I will ask you a lot of questions. I will make you self-reflect. I will challenge you. I'll bring like a different perspective. And at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be solving the problem, not me. But I'm going to help you try to see it from a different angle, from a different perspective. And maybe you have to make some mind change, change channels or something to understand what's going on. And so that's really what coaching is about. Okay. Going back to executive coaching, it's really people that are in the corporate world, and depending on their level, They may have issues with communication, or, there's a lot of what you call executive presence, which means, let's say you're a senior middle manager. Okay. You've been successful. You have your team, they perform, but in a corporate world, you have a pyramid, it narrows. So for you to get to the next step, it's not enough for you to perform well. You have to have people that will, talk good about you, that will refer you, that will know what you do.
Yeah, and that's so valuable that you're saying that, because there's still a lot, I think less than in the past, but still a lot of people are being told and buying into this, oh, just do well and that's all you need to do. Well, sadly, that's not how the corporate world is structured, and that's not to your point.
It's not.
I'm so glad you're sharing that with us.
So, it's, you get all kinds of issues that, people don't realize what's happening. And then you start digging in, and then you understand what the real issue is. And then you can solve that and help them, the person move. So usually the challenges in the executive, in the corporate world, are, executive presence, communications, difficult conversations, and for whatever reason.
And Steve, you serve your clientele in English, Spanish, Portuguese. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Now, sort of sidetracked you a little earlier. You do also speak some French and some German, is it?
Well, yes. German, my mom was German, my dad was Hungarian. They used to speak German between themselves. Oh, wow. I did not like German. So they would talk to me, and I did not like, I was stupid. When I was a kid, they would speak to me in German, and both my sister and myself, we would answer back in Spanish.
That's cool.
So today, I understand everything. When someone's speaking German, I understand everything that someone says. I have a difficulty speaking it. I'll get along, so I'm not going to get lost, or I'll communicate. Right. But it's not. Let's say it's far from a fluent German.
Right. Fascinating. And then the French. Did you speak?
The French I had it in high school, and then I had to learn it before I went to INSEAD.
And you had to learn it for real.
I had to learn it. Even though at the end of the day, it's like every single course was in English.
Oh, really?
Except
that's good for people to know.
English. No, everything.
I didn't realize that.
Except for a crazy marketing professor that sometimes he would lecture in French, and at the same time, he would be writing in the board in English.
Yeah, that's a little eccentric. It's a good trick.
But I'm good at it.
I couldn't do it. Talk about parallel.
Yeah. So let's say, going back to the coaching, and then business coaching is really more helping business owners many times, when they start growing, and then they have to let go. They can't control everything. They got to put processes in place. They have to delegate more. They have to understand that, yes, he's your friend, but maybe he's not the right person to be on the. So you're still coaching them, but it's a different scenario.
I mean, how I sort of think of coaching, and it seems the way a lot of people can understand more almost intuitively. I mean, think of the best athletes, right? They all have coaches, whether they're in a team sport or an individual sport. At once you've made it to a certain level, you're not making it further than that without coaching. I mean, it's just just nature of professionalism, right? I mean, you can get so far on your own or with other kind of support, but to really get to a world-class level or the best in your field, you're going to need help. So there's nothing. Coaching should just be looked at as a really positive, option for helping improve one's performance.
And I think it is. I think, more and more, it used to be something only for like top management, the
Right.
C-suite and what have you. And I think, you have a lot of coaching firms now. So it's becoming a lot more democratic, and a lot more people in the organization are getting coaching, and it's helpful. So I think it's moving in the right direction.
Do you find that I mean, because there's so many, as you're talking about, there's so many, with your experience and training, there's so many ways that you can approach coaching, uh, for whether on again one-on-one or almost on a corporate level. Do you find that you get requested to assist them in the interaction of the coaching and the culture, or do they perceive them as siloed, separate?
Uh, they're not necessarily siloed, but you only discover what the real issue is once you're into the coaching. Okay, it can happen that you get a client, for example, that says, okay, this person just moved from Colombia, and they're in the States, and the cultures are different, they're adapting, and they need help in that respect. Okay, so that
Okay.
can happen. Sometimes it happened to me. I'm coaching somebody that is, let's say, from a different culture, and they're having difficulty in some things, and then suddenly they realize that there are big cultural differences, and that's
Hmm.
their mind frame is affecting the way they're thinking. And once they realize that, they move forward.
This might be a good time to share with everyone. What's the website for Step Forward?
It's www.stepforwardcoaching.com.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. And you have a Facebook page as well, right?
I do.
Can you share that with us?
I think it's Step Forward Coach.
Okay, but if they put your name and the consulting name in, they'll get it, right?
I'll get it. It's yeah. I think it's not coaching for Facebook. It's Step Forward Coach.
Okay, great. Now, if time permits, I'm going to switch with one more question back to switch us on another track. So I saw on LinkedIn you're doing some work for a supplement company, is it? Great. Like,
Yeah, I'm advising let's say two startups.
fascinating. I find it fascinating because I'm both a consumer
Okay,
supplement company.
one is called Ceregold, and it's a brain supplement. And
Okay.
what it is, it's kind of a supplement that helps nourish your brain. And people that use it it's not a inexpensive product, but people that use it are really, really happy with the results. And it really gives people, a
So,
boost of
can you
energy.
repeat the name again for us?
Ceregold,
There we go.
CERE gold.com.
Okay. All right. And again, it's on your LinkedIn page if anyone's curious, and I'll put together.
Yeah, it should be.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and the other one I'm also helping out as an advisor is educational platform for virtual learning.
Okay, can you share the name or is it under NDA?
Sure, it's a little bit more complicated. It's Nomadics, KNOMADIX, nomadics.com.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting spelling. Sounds like nomad, but clearly it's not spelled that way. So tell us a little bit about how you're helping them.
Mostly I would say strategy and marketing.
Okay, both.
Yeah.
And are they a young company?
They're both young. Let's say Ceregold just started manufacturing maybe a year ago.
Okay,
So
that's young.
and Nomadics has a few products out, and this year with the whole stay at home and the whole issue with the schools, it's kind of taking off.
Oh,
So they have
legendary.
they have a really cool app for people that have young kids. It's right now you can download it for free. It's called Number Sense, and it really helps. It's a gamified how to learn math in.
Oh, it's gamified. Sweet. Yeah, we'll have to share that with people as well. Um, Steve, as we get towards the end here, what are you looking forward to in 2021? What do you have some bandwidth to accept new clients, I take it?
Yeah, I obviously, I'm uh, uh, there are a lot of new opportunities coming for next year, and so in that respect, and also the other part is I want to travel someplace. I want to I want to be able to
Yeah,
go
I hear you on
someplace.
that. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and let me also mention, because it's again, for a caliber person, we're often not used to self-marketing or self-selling, but in addition to where people can reach out to you on your website, Facebook, LinkedIn, you also have a monthly email newsletter. Is that right? So they can sign up for that on your webpage.
Yes,
That's
yes.
great. So you've
Oh
got
yeah,
a lot of ways to reach
if
Steve
they
here,
go to
people.
my website, they can. And what I do, let's say I started that maybe a year and a half ago. I
I
try to keep it
remember.
very simple. It's just a newsletter on leadership, strategy, innovation. Um,
Yeah, and I like it. It's got a very positive feel to it. Even with all the craziness going on in the world, your newsletter tends to always sort of emphasize or find the positive. So,
yeah, I'm not selling anything. I just want to, give back, add content, and usually I include maybe, one or two TED Talks or other talks and one article. So some people prefer reading, some people, just want to watch something, or they can do it when they're walking. Um, so it's once a month, usually in the middle of the month. So next week, the new edition will come out.
all right, I'll look forward to it. Um, just be respectful of your time, and we'll definitely have to do a part 2 on this, where I'd like to get into more about what you see going on in Brazil, etc. So before you say goodbye, I do want to tell us, how did you get to Dallas? I don't think we talked about that.
Well, it started with my brother-in-law who moved here after
With the
school.
restaurant.
Yeah, so he studied hotel management. He worked here for a hotel, and then he left the hotel and opened the restaurant. And then slowly, the rest of my wife's family started moving to Dallas. So we've been
Okay.
coming to Dallas, let's say, for the last 25 years or something.
Okay.
And then both our daughters went to university, and when they graduated, they started working, and they said, well, we don't want to go back to Brazil. So then we were the only ones left in Brazil. So I said, okay, if they're not going, we better.
Right. And you have family in,
We decided to make the move.
right?
Move the.
Right. You have family
Sorry?
parts. Do you have family in other parts of the U.S. or just primarily here in DFW?
I do. I have, let's say, from my mother's side, I have cousins I have cousins in Georgia, in Alabama,
Okay.
in Toronto.
Oh,
So
wow. All
I
over.
have family scattered all over the place. I have family in Germany. So yeah, they're all over the place.
That's nice. That's nice. Well, Steve, thank you so much. This was fun. Again, we'll have you back, and next time we'll focus a little more on goings on in Brazil, Latin America, etc. Again, thank you. Muito obrigado. Is there any closing remarks or anything like to share with us just here in closing?
No, just like to congratulate you on your initiative, and thank you.
It's very grateful
Honor
for you.
having me as the first one here. So thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I mean, your story is awesome. You've got these elements of a telenovela, a soap opera, and how your family came from Europe, and then you've lived all over. You've done business all over. You just got such a vibrant cosmopolitan experience. It's just fascinating to hear. So thanks so much for being here with us, and we'll talk soon.
Obrigado a você. Muchas
Obrigado.
gracias.
Ciao.
No, take care. Thank you.
You got it. Ciao.